Hello everyone, welcome back to Dark Night Tales. Before we dive in, please show your support, give this video a like and be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. So let's get started.
The first story. Strange coincidences after a fairy circle was removed from a cattle field. This story happened in 2007 and gets told every time my family gets together. My Nana owns a farm and she's always had a herd of cows and a guard donkey. In one of her cattle fields, there used to be a large circle of mushrooms that my Nana said was a fairy circle. Now my Nana is Irish and Irish people don't mess with fairies and she refused to even mow over the circle. When she married my step-granddad, he didn't believe in fairies or the paranormal and he wanted to remove the circle from the field, but my Nana told him not to. He thought that she was being silly and they would argue about it all of the time. Long story short, he went behind her back and had the fairy circle removed while she was away. When she found out what he did, she refused to talk to him for days and was very angry and upset. 2 weeks after the circle was removed, all of her pregnant cows aborted their calves. My Nana was devastated since she is very experienced and careful with looking after her cows and she had never lost all of her calves before. It hasn't happened since. She has lost 1 or 2 but never all of them. There was also a strange, scary experience that involved me that my Nana believed was also connected. My mum and 1-year-old me stayed with my Nana for a few days to cheer her up since she was still upset about the calves. Somehow, I ended up catching chicken pox, which is supposed to be rare in babies under 1. Luckily, I wasn't too sick, but it still scared everyone. I know that my Nana still leaves small offerings in the cattle field like small cakes and barley water, even though my step-granddad still thinks it's silly. I've stayed at her farm a lot and the field definitely has a different feel to it that I've never felt anywhere else. Especially at night, and I would never stay outside after dark. I know it was probably just 2 random coincidences, but it's become a legend in my family. The second story. Dogs have some kind of sixth sense. A lot of years ago, my grandfather died. Our dog, German Spitz, was strongly attached to him, basically considering him as his owner. So of course when he died, the dog was for the rest of his life almost like without mood. After he had funeral, the dog wasn't there. Couple of days or so, we went on the cemetery. With the dog now, taking him for a walk. As soon as we entered the cemetery, the dog ran from us, running through the graves and such, directly towards the grave. I ran after him only to see that he indeed found the grandpa's grave, laid on it, cried. The dog has never been there, on grandfather's grave, before, yet he managed to found it all by itself, recognize that grandfather is buried there. Is it possible that the dog maybe still felt the scent of the grandfather after the funeral? It's the only reasonable solution for the question, how was the dog able to found my grandfather's grave without it being there before? The third story. Heard my dead cat last night? I had a cat that died 4 years ago. What is interesting about this cat is that he would go out in the living room in the middle of the night and just scream hello over and over. He legit sounded like a person. I would have to warn guests that he would do this because it would freak people out. Last night, I heard the hello over and over from the living room and it took me a minute to wake up enough to realize that I should not be hearing it. I sat up in bed and kept hearing it, so I ran out to check. The noise stopped. My other cats were sound asleep, plus they have never ever made that noise before. I have no idea what to make of it. It definitely was not a dream like some of my friends have suggested. Ada, he has never lived in the house I am currently at. I did move around a lot with him and he screamed hello at every house we moved to. The fourth story. A group of people just disappeared. So my wife, dog, son, and I went for a walk a few days ago. We decided to cross over to the other side of the street to give some room and keep my crazy dog away from people as a group of 4 young women, teens to early 20s, was walking towards us. This area of sidewalk was right next to a large, flat, open field. They were halfway down the block as we were walking on the other side of the road in the opposite direction. We walked past 2 parked cars and, poof, these girls across the street were just gone. They did not cross in front or behind us. There was no house or car on their side for them to get into. The street and open field were empty. There was not enough time, even at full sprint, for them to have gone anywhere else. I even walked all the way to intersection they were headed towards and looked in all directions. Just gone. My wife initially thought she hallucinates them until I confirmed with her that I did in fact see them as well. The fifth story. Strange encounter in the woods when I was 15. When I was 15 or so, me and my group of friends all slept over at the leader of our friend group's house. This dude lived in the most absolutely rural area of our rural town, basically in the middle of the woods, a house just absolutely surrounded by thick walls of trees. In the evening, we decided to go out and start a bonfire deep in his woods, so we packed up, got all our materials, and went straight out into the woods. On the way to the spot we'd be making our campfire at, he told us about how effed up and creepy his woods are, and the numerous things he's seen. White, skinny figures peeking around his shed, staring at him and running off when he looked at it, screaming in whispers from the woods, figures watching him, all that good stuff. It set the mood pretty well. By around 7 at night, we had the campfire set up, and it was pitch black outside, as it was the middle of winter in New Hampshire. I can still remember how creepy the whole vibe was that night. You could not see a single thing besides the ring of light coming out from the fire, everything else was just a black wall of nothingness, and the sound of the forest was so quiet that it was almost deafeningly loud if we didn't talk. We ended up needing more firewood or whatever we were using for the campfire, so the leader takes me with him to go get it. Without a flashlight or any light source, me and him walked the 1.5 mile long trail back to his house in complete and utter darkness. It was all good, we were talking, joking with each other, having a good time just hanging out when the first noises started. He immediately made me stop talking. To my left, and my right, was a bunch of different sounds, screaming, laughing, talking/whispering, shouting, people saying inaudible words. It sounded like there was something around 20 people around us. The natural night vision had set in a decent amount, and I looked over at my friend, who had his head down and did not say a single word. Known for being a complete goofball and a wild, funny dude, I had never seen him look so shaken and serious in my life. He had this look to him that still kinda haunts me to this day, as we knew him and he portrayed himself as this fearless leader type of our group, and seeing him so shaken up and afraid was really unsettling. I started to say something along the lines of "what is that?" before he cut me off and told me to be quiet, face forward, and to not pay attention to any of the sounds. I did what he said, and the next 3 or so minutes was uncomfortable and terrifying. I remember feeling sick to my stomach. By the time we reached his house, the sounds had stopped, and we both grabbed what we needed to grab in silence. That's when I could really listen to the sheer quietness of that night. No birds, no sticks falling, no sound. Absurdly silent. We walked back to the campsite, and nothing else occurred that night. Still my most unsettling and bizarre experience that I have almost no explanation of. This could be a paranormal experience, although I am not sure. The 6th story. Is it possible to get sick from a dream/nightmare? Let me explain. A few years ago, I had a weird experience. That night I went to sleep completely healthy, no signs of any illness whatsoever. It was a normal, unremarkable day. Then I had some sort of nightmare? Thinking about it to this day still makes me feel uncomfortable. I remember waking up, slowly, to a terrible headache that started growing out of nowhere. It felt like a drill on my head. It was all dark. I could not move, or talk, or see anything. I felt really confused for some reason. Like if I was experiencing something illogical. I know it sounds like sleep paralysis, but it wasn't. I've had several sleep paralysis before and this wasn't anything like it. It did felt like some sort of dream, like I wasn't fully awake. It was all blurry and confusing. Then I started hearing voices. But not physical sound, it was like information forcefully entering my mind. Words, ideas. They were suffering a lot. They were dying, in the middle of nowhere, like a forgotten vessel floating in empty space. I remember how bad they were having it, like if they were dying slowly to something. A disease, or perhaps the end of their life support, I really don't know. They begged for help. They were begging me for their life. I remember feeling really confused about everything. I really can't explain this feeling. It kind of felt like that viral image of a bunch of things where you can't name any single thing. I remember they asked me to do something with a flower that looked big and purple. I remember seeing it very clearly, a huge flower laying on the floor. It's like they were trying to tell me to do something I didn't understand. The verb part was missing. The action, the thing I had to do with the flower. So I didn't know what to do, and they were really nervous, like screaming into my ear, begging me that I did that. I felt really bad for being unable to help them. My head hurt like hell. In the end, it suddenly stopped. I woke up with this horrible painful headache and with 40°C fever. I felt lightheaded. And it lasted for a week. I hope this doesn't sound like some Wattpad story because it actually happened to me, At the time I thought it could be some alien shit, but now I believe it was just some weird dream. Still, I can't understand how a dream made me terribly ill. What do you guys think about this? The seventh story. My 4-year-old niece said she's seen a back in her bed. My niece is 4 and she sleeps in a small room that's in her mom's room with her own bed. 2 days ago she told me she seen a back in her bed. She said it was small, I think about 12 inches, 36 centimeters, and said it was the same skin color of her. She said it had no arms, legs or head, and after she saw it she ran to her mom's bed because she was scared and slept with her. Last night she was crying because she didn't want to sleep in her own bed. She said the back will come. What could this mean? If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.